You know, I've said this in so many videos in the past, and that is, it is your resume that validated your competence. It is the phone screen that validated your competence. And now, when you're going into that one-on-one interview, it becomes more about compatibility than it does about competence. They want to make sure that you're going to be a good fit on the team. That hiring manager wants to make sure that you're not going to be a problem for him or her. So sure, you're still going to be asked some questions that will, determine your competence, but for the most part, that's already done. And really, you need to see this because it's so important. I have client after client after client who has landed, who has told me in almost the same exact words, Bill, it was incredible how well we clicked together. That's usually the case. You want to be in rapport with that individual out there. And I want to share a story with you that actually happened with me, personally happened with me. I'm not all that proud of it, but it does show just how important compatibility and getting into the rapport with that individual can be. So right after I had left corporate America, I was looking at supplementing my coaching income with some coaching work through maybe a part-time nonprofit organization. I did not want to go back into technology. I was just primarily focused on my coaching. And so I saw this position being advertised out there, and it was for like a part-time coach working with opportunity teens. And if you're not familiar with that term, opportunity teens, that refers to teens who have been in the either the justice system, or they've been runaways or pregnant or homelessness, or just check as many boxes as you need to check. These were young people, usually between the age of 16 to 24, who were struggling out there. And so there was this nonprofit. It was a really cool nonprofit that was working to help find these individuals, their first jobs. And so I interviewed with the first person, and we got along really well. Now she was young; she was very young, but we got along well. And she introduced me to the director of the organization, who is actually also the founder of this organization. And he and I, you couldn't click any better. I mean, this guy was from the mortgage business. Although in IT, I was coming from commercial real estate. He was my age. We both got master's degrees late in life. In fact, his MBA, the project that he had to use to get his MBA, was the basis of this nonprofit organization. So we're getting along really good. And he tells me, he says, Bill, I want you to meet one final person on my team. She is the placement director for for the youth out there. And I said, fine. So he gives me this individual's name and sets up an interview for the next day. And I go home, and exactly like what I advise all of my clients to do is research the person that is going to be interviewing you. So what did I do? I go to LinkedIn and I find her, and let me tell you, this woman had the scariest looking profile photo I have ever seen in my life. To this day, 5 years later, to this day, I've never seen anyone with a profile photo as intimidating looking as this individual. And I've been working with CEOs. I don't get intimidated. And I'm thinking to myself, there is no way anyone could be this mean in the world. And so I did something, again, I'm not really all that proud of. I think it might be a little bit sleazy to some people out there. Leave me a comment in the notes section below if you think this was a sleazy thing to do. But I did something that I know a lot of employers will do, and that is I checked out her Facebook to see if maybe she had an open profile. And guess what? She did. This is what I found on her Facebook profile: cat videos, kitten videos, cat photos, kitten photos. This woman loved cats. Now, let me intersect something here for a moment. I like cats. I have 3 cats. They were all feral at one time. My daughters and I, we started feeding them, and eventually they came into our house, and they've been living with us for over 10 years. Okay, and I still feed cats to this day out there. Even though my daughters had moved away and they didn't take the cats, I still feed the cats. About, I go into the interview, and this woman, she's not nearly as mean looking as her profile made her out to be. In fact, if anything, this woman really needs to update her LinkedIn profile photo, but that's for another story. But we start talking, she's a lovely lady, and I had noticed when I first walked in, she had like a little tiny desk calendar, something that maybe a dentist or an insurance company would give. And it had little pictures of cats. I saw a little trinket on her desk of a cat. Nothing major there. There was nothing that stood out any more than those two things. But I happened to kind of notice that based upon the stalking I did on her Facebook page. So anyway, we're going along, and it's about 10 minutes into the interview, and she says to me, she says, Bill, the one thing I don't get is, you're, even if you work full time in nonprofit, you're never going to make the kind of money that you were making in technology. And this kind of just slipped out. But I said, as long as I can keep feeding the feral cats in the neighborhood, the universe is good. Oh my God, you should have saw her melt. She just, the biggest smile came to her face. And from there on out, I really don't remember anything outside of that. I've never seen, an interview go so well in my life. We really clicked together. This is the importance, though, of getting into rapport with individuals. And, I had a client a couple of years ago. He was a sales manager. And he told me, he says, Bill, he says, when I'm interviewing somebody, I expect them to do as much research on me as humanly possible. I want them to know about me when they come in to the interview. And, this is something with LinkedIn that you will want to do. What I suggest everyone does out there is before you go into an interview, search this person on LinkedIn. Sure, they may get a notification of it. In fact, if anything, see if there's anything in common and bring it up and say, hey, by the way, I was looking at your LinkedIn profile and I see that we have a common connection. Do you know so-and-so very well? These are actually compliments to the individual that you took the time to do the research on them. Now, again, I don't think I would recommend that you suggested you checked them out on Facebook or something. Twitter, different story, good thing to do. LinkedIn, good thing to do. Facebook's a little bit more on a personal side, but again, I know there's a lot of hiring managers out there that do this, and so I kind of just turn the tables a little bit there. And by the way, it's also a good lesson for everyone watching this video that if you're currently in career transition interviewing, if you have anything questionable at all on your Facebook page, make sure that you turn on those restrictions so nobody can be snooping around like people like me.